good afternoon, everyone. My name's Mitch Ernst. This is part 3 in a 3-part series on nonprofit management and fundraising. Today's presentation is Nonprofit Essentials for Local and State Clubs. This is more focused towards smaller organizations. The 2 previous presentations were geared towards larger organizations. I just handed out to you IRS Publication 557. It is the Nonprofit Bible. When you want to start a nonprofit or form an unincorporated nonprofit organization with the IRS, the information necessary to assemble one, to find out what applications you need to do, what forms are required. The main form is IRS Form 1023. That's what you file to get your status as an exempt organization. It can be confusing, as it says, or if not overwhelming. That's why this is the good book. Everything you need to know is in this publication. And they are free from the IRS. So if you need to get one, in a minute I'll show you a phone number you can write down and call them and request copies of your own to share with other people in your organization. The IRS, that's fine, has a duty of determining the worthiness of the applications for tax exemption. The rules for exemption under 501c3 organizations might seem complicated, but they're necessary to filter out organizations just trying to gain, a tax advantage, or saying, hey, your gifts will be, tax deductible, or, that type of thing. So if you want to form an organization or you're refiling, you will be scrutinized. If you'd like to determine if your intentions are eligible under 501c3 or made a decision to proceed with filing for a nonprofit tax exemption, this is the IRS, the Bible, the IRS Publication 557. The greatest advantage to any 501c nonprofit tax exempt filing is a solid understanding of this thing. So I know it's daunting. I know, wow, talk about fine print, really? Just page after page. And most organizations don't need to, have this all memorized. Hey, find a good person who understands nonprofit tax. They'll be able to talk you or help you through it, if nothing else. If your organization is too small to pay for that, get out your magnifying glass, and it's very straightforward, and you can work your way through it. And in my experience with working with the IRS agents, we had a difficulty in Nebraska. It's time consuming. I spent 2 hours just for him to look up one thing, because he had to go check and look and check and look, come back and affirm, confirm, reaffirm. But the IRS agents were all very, and this was during tax season, they were all patient and understanding because they have a separate branch and a phone number just for exempt organizations. Yes, Marlene?
Isn't it possible, though, to start your 501c in a different state that is a little bit more lenient than another state? Or is it harder?
I really don't know the answer to that.
Because I know, like, California's got much stricter tax laws when a state wants more money for taxes. It's harder to establish it there. They're going to be more scrutinized on your organization. So is it manageable to find a state?
Well,
it's going to be a national organization, or?
Well, yeah, like I said, that's probably a good question to ask a person who specializes in nonprofit law or taxes. I really couldn't give you a qualified answer on that, because I know when we had to refile, one of the questions was, where do you do your business? and that's the state they wanted you to register in, where you do most of your business. So, but if you do a national business, yeah,
Or a national organization.
right, yeah.
Good question.
This is all about, and also a 1023 is your application for your exempt status. The dedicated phone line for exempt organizations is, it's right up here, so is that big enough for everybody to read?
Yes.
Okay. Put it back, please, so they can finish copying it down. Thank you. Everyone have that? Okay, let's go on. As I said, again, this is nonprofit essentials. This is for people. I didn't know who was going to be here, so do you have an EIN, an employer's identification number? As I mentioned, alluded to earlier, we had a nightmare in Nebraska. The Nebraska Numismatic Association had not filed a 990N with the IRS, and its status was revoked. You have to file. If you don't file within a 3-year period, if you skip 3 years, they will yank you. You will be non-existent. I mean, they don't even just yank you, they erase your existence. I knew we were in trouble in Nebraska when I asked the treasurer if he had filed our 990N a few years ago, and his response was, "What's that?" So I called the IRS, I gave them the EIN that we had that was issued in 1956. This was the start of the 2-hour conversation. What's your number? We can't find it. Who's your registered agent? That's another thing. When you call the IRS in this number, you can say, I'm president of this association, I'm the treasurer. You need to have your registered agent's name, the address your organization is registered under, phone number. If you don't have that, thank you for calling the IRS. Goodbye. They will terminate the call because they need to, I guess that's their fail-safe way of checking to see if you really represent the organization you're calling about. Okay. The 990N requirements, who must file. Most small tax-exempt organizations whose annual gross income receipts are $50,000 or less. Most small clubs are way under that. And what the 990N is now, it's not even a paper form, it's done electronically. It's called the e-postcard. And you go to their website. If you exceed some of these or there's different limitations, then you do have to fill out the Form EZ and mail that in. Okay, next. If you go to the IRS website or just Google 990N e-postcard and make sure you're getting the IRS site. There's a lot of, when you pull it up, you know, like when you Google United States Mint and you get all these sites, you know, make sure you're getting IRS Gov on the title of your Google document that you're looking for. Just type in 990N e-postcard and it'll give you the address. Just click on it. This is just a partial bit of the, but it'll give you all the information you need to know about filing your 990 for your organization. And there'll be a link there on that page if you go back. You know, links all through it. How, you know, frequently asked questions, a user guide, how to do it. As you go down, there'll even be a link on taking you right to the 990N filing page. Okay. Why you need to file? A question someone presented to me in Nebraska about when I said we need to reapply and refile all this. Well, who would want to give us anything? The problem is if you aren't not a tax exempt organization, anyone who does give you anything, it's not tax deductible for them and it's taxable to you. So if someone would want to give you anything, that's why you need your status. That's why you need to be exempt. If you do get this question, you know, if you do get this from people, sorry, but there's a lot of longtime members of organizations who feel we can just lie low, we can fly under the radar. No, after 9/11, the world has changed. You can't even open a checking account for your club without every officer being there, signature card, proof. You have to take in a year's worth of minutes to prove who's on the board, who's doing all that. I mean, it is a different world. And so, yes, flying under the radar is much more difficult than it used to be. And if you can't find someone who wants to do, find people in your organization who believe in it. Recruit them. Say to the fellow who doesn't believe anyone wants to help you, boy, we appreciate your service. You've been wonderful. You've been here 30 years, you've been here 40 years. You're awesome. We'd like to make you hold this position where you're in charge of bringing donuts every month or something. But, you know, they no longer need to be in a position in your organization that determines your legality, your status. If they don't believe enough to think that you need to cross your T's and dot your I's, they should be doing something else for the organization. But be grateful for what they've done in the past. Thank them. Appreciate them. Again, as I've mentioned in the past, you have to sell your vision and belief to others. There's a lot of clubs, I know I'm involved with a couple, who, you know, they just as soon see the organization fail because, well, we've gotten what we need to out of it, you know, we're fine, there is no future because I don't know how long my future is. You know, that's kind of how they view things. So sell the vision. Give people a reason to believe in your organization again. Again, as I mentioned previous, you have to build a foundation. A lot of these things are making friends. Take time. It takes time to do these things. So build the foundation with your organization. And you do have to think outside the traditional box of how to do things and how to fund your club. Who would want to give us anything? Well, in the past, sure, dues covered everything. Dues would cover your postage, would cover your newsletters, would cover your annual big dinner or whatever your club did, or your show revenue would help. That's not the case anymore. I mean, venues are getting so expensive. I mean, you can't even, they won't let you most hotels won't let you bring in your own coffee for a venue or a show anymore, and they'll charge you $100 for a pot of coffee. I mean, that's what the whole room rental used to be in a lot of cases. So we have to start thinking of different ways to raise funds because dues and show revenues are not covering it the way they used to. Okay. So what are you? Are you even an exempt organization? As I found out with the Nebraska Numismatic Association, we thought we were, you know. Are you still exempt? And what are you exempt as? A C3, a C7? There's a lot of designations. So let's look at the differences. To be a C3, you must be organized and operated exclusively for exempt purposes, set forth in Section 501c3 of that publication. None of your earnings may inure to any private shareholder or individual. It means you can't be a nonprofit and have it be someone's business where that they get their livelihood out of it. As a C3, you cannot attempt to influence legislation. That's a different designation. That's a C6, I believe. as a substantial part of its activities, or campaign activity, or for or against any political candidates. Organizations in 503Cs are usually, C3s are usually referred to as charitable organizations. Okay, let's go on. Again, it must not be organized or operated for the benefit of any private interests or individual. None of your net earnings may, again, be to the benefit of a single shareholder or individual. If you engage in excess benefit transaction with a person having substantial influence over the organization, you may be taxed on the person or the organization agreeing to that transaction. Again, C3s are restricted to their political activities. Again, you can call and ask about that, or you can see this section in the 557. Okay, Sam. The benefits of being a C3. You have an exemption from federal income tax, tax-deductible contributions, possible exemption from state income, sales, and employment taxes, reduced postal rates. If you have big bulk mailings, nonprofit C3s do get reduced postal rates for that. An exemption from federal unemployment tax, and you can get tax-exempt financing if you need to take out a loan. Most people don't realize there is a difference between a nonprofit and being tax-exempt. People believe that nonprofits automatically have their C3s. What's the difference? Nonprofit status refers to what your state law gives you. How many in here have to file not only their 990s, but every 2 years or so with the state Secretary of State of your state, you have to file something to say you're still operating in Nebraska. In Nebraska, it's a $20 fee, and the Secretary of State wants to know if you're still operating and if you fall under their limits as well. So to the state, you're a nonprofit. Only the IRS can give you tax-exempt status. Tax-exempt status refers to state and federal exemptions under the tax regulations. I would say most are organized as both a nonprofit and a tax-exempt entity, but that means there's two processes there to receive both. You just can't do one and assume you're the other. See, again, a nonprofit organization, whether incorporated or not, has to decide whether or not if it wants to apply for its tax-exempt status from the IRS and the state. Okay, Sam. A C7, I believe a lot of hobby organizations fall under this. This is like fraternities, sororities, country clubs, dinner clubs, hobby clubs. The chief benefit for a C7, it doesn't pay federal taxes on its day-to-day activities. But there's other advantages for being a C7. See what it is, it's actually a club where the members band for mutual enjoyment. How many social clubs? A lot of coin clubs are just social clubs. You just get together for the mutual benefit, getting to, seeing each other, having fun, talking about your common interests. That's mutual benefit. And if they had to pay money to have fun on their own, the members wouldn't have been liable for income tax, so they say social clubs shouldn't be able to have to pay taxes on that either. Unlike other tax-exempt organizations, a C7, tax-exempt clubs need not provide a public service or a community benefit. You don't have to say, well, we have this big we don't have to have a mission. You don't have to have a mission to be a C7. Your mission is, hey, we just like to hang out. Okay. The basics of a 501c7. If the money comes entirely from membership dues, it is generally okay with the Internal Revenue Service. However, many clubs or corporations created under state law, and if your club owns land, buildings, stock, bank accounts, and other assets, in those type of cases, club income from rents, dividends, interest may be subject, if you're a C7, to federal taxation. In order for a C7 to be tax exempt and abide by IRS requirements, a substantial amount of club activities must further the club's exempt purposes. So, you have to, have a substantial amount of your money coming for that reason. Generally, no more than 35% of the club's revenues can come from non-member sources. So like if you're a C7, no more than 30, this is one of the drawbacks, only 35% of your club revenue can come from dues, show revenue, and the show revenues have to be member-based. A C7 club could be subject to taxation or lose its exempt status if it engages in business outside of its exempt purpose. For example, a library may be okay. A gas station, barbershop, or liquor store probably isn't. Even if the members take recreation, we've all seen the fraternal societies that have bars and different things like this. This is what they're talking about. The advantage of a C7, in a for-profit club, when new members replace the old and pay higher dues, that's a taxable income gain to the club. But a C7 can avoid that tax. Taxable clubs must also pay Uncle Sam on member assessments, such as if you owned your building and you had to have repairs to it. Tax-exempt clubs can avoid these levies because they qualify for breaks that aren't available to for-profit organizations. Okay. The problem with C7s, some warnings. A lot of people sign up for this because, we're not a C3. We don't need to go through all that. We don't need to, because it is more stringent to get a C3. We're just a social club. The problem is clubs that derive revenues from activities that the IRS deems to be commercial can jeopardize their exempt status. Boy, a coin club, would they have an activity that the IRS would think would be commercial? Oh, I just got an email from my mother-in-law. There we go. Your annual show. The IRS could deem that a commercial enterprise, and that could jeopardize your status. Does that include coin shows, auctions, etc.? I would assume so. So if you have a C7, that's a drawback for a coin club. Of course, we all understand discrimination is wrong. You can't do that. The IRS finds out you have an only club of one sort or another, your status can be yanked. Okay. This should be the mantra of every nonprofit manager and board member. I won't go to jail for you. It's easy enough to educate yourself and do things right. Why take the chance? People say, we can fly under the radar. No one's going to find out. We're so small. Who cares what we do? The IRS cares. They really. So there's no need to go to jail over this. The chances are that would never happen. But again, why take the chance? Hey, who'll know we'll only fly? I second the motion that we keep a low profile. They're all under the table. That's how a lot of boards want to carry on business. Really, you know, let's just do it right. Take the time. Another essential that I find that is important: don't take your club's records, your filings, your statuses, all the information, all the important information about your club, bank account numbers, officers, duties of officers, everything. Sometimes it's so easy for someone to say, oh, I'll run for treasurer, and all they think they got to do, you know. Put all those duties. Does your club have a continuity book? It could only be a single page that you put in a folder, or you just give the incoming officer. Let them know what their duties may be. Let the new treasurer know where the, you know, just don't hand them the checkbook. Let them know what the checkbook, you know, what they have to do, that they have to go sign a new signature card, that there's different things. A continuity book is used. Greg, you're in the military. There were continuity books in the military, aren't they, for command, from command to command?
If we had a continuity book for training, squad training, shift training, or anything like that, we need to have it. That's the biggest thing, is an inspectable item. So if we didn't have inspectors show up, IG shows up, inspector, and they said, hey, we need to see your flight's continuity book on this.
Right.
We didn't have it, there was a hit. Next you know, the boss is coming back down saying, where's it at?
Now, of course, most club duties aren't as important or essential as what, you know, Air Force officers or military personnel have to do. It just makes things easier. So often in clubs, we keep getting in our own way. You know, we had a longtime club member who was treasurer for years and years and years. And when he finally stepped down, do you think he would take the time to train or help the new young kid coming in who wanted to do it? Not a chance. You know, and why? If the club meant so much to you to be involved for 20 some years, take the time to keep it a good club for the next 25 by helping to train. And this is what this book can help avoid. If someone has a personality problem or whatever, if it's in a book, books don't care who read them. You know, so put all this information in a continuity book. Don't take it to the grave. Good things to have in there: officer duties and responsibilities, passwords for accounts, your emails, your IRS e-postcard, etc. Your account signature cards. Get your new officers' names on those accounts ASAP. I've been president of the Nebraska Numismatic Association for 9 years, and our treasurer could never find the time to meet me at the bank so I can get my name on the account. Our past president of 9 years ago is still on the account. It's maddening. How hard is that? Just, I never sign a check. The treasurer's name is still, so he signs it, but just do it. How hard is it, you know, to keep things right? Newsletter editor, pass on your membership forms to the people. Give them the Excel account so they can just make up the new labels easily. Don't say, oh, you know, give them a pile of papers and expect them to data load it all in. As I talked about in fundraising, it's friend making. Be friendly with people, you know. This is all easy to do. Another thing every club should have: what happens when the day comes you decide to dissolve? Are you prepared for that day? Do you have a process? Do you have things lined up where you know what you want to do with your assets, with your club, whatever? have a guideline for the day you decide to dissolve. Okay, that's it. This was a short one today. So any questions? Okay, don't forget to take your Bible. It'll come in handy if you ever have to do any of this with the IRS. And again, I found them to be very friendly, forthcoming, helpful. Unlike the stereotype that you hear, that exempt status number, they've been awesome in my experience. So, thank you for coming, everyone.